The shimmering portal closed behind Nerea as she stumbled onto the rain-slicked pavement of a dark New York alley. She gasped, filling her lungs with Earth's oxygen-rich atmosphere, a stark contrast to the thin air of her dying homeworld. As the interdimensional travel sickness faded, Nerea's 6 eyes blinked in rapid succession, adjusting to the dim light and taking in her new surroundings. The cacophony of city sounds assaulted her sensitive hearing, the rumble of vehicles, the chatter of late-night pedestrians, and the distant wail of sirens. Nerea pulled her cloak tighter around her slender, iridescent form, acutely aware of how alien she would appear to human eyes. She couldn't afford discovery, not when the fate of her people rested on her shoulders. Nerea was the last of the Luminae, a race of ethereal beings from a distant galaxy. Their world had been ravaged by a cosmic event, forcing them to seek refuge among the stars. Earth, with its diverse ecosystem and burgeoning spacefaring civilization, had been chosen as their salvation. But the Luminae elders feared that humanity would react with hostility to an overt alien presence. And so they had devised a plan that Nerea was now tasked with carrying out. As she gathered her courage and prepared to venture into the human world, Nerea recalled the words of the Luminae High Council: integrate, observe, and when the time is right, share our essence with them. Our survival depends on the melding of our species. Nerea took a deep breath, activating the biocamouflage implant beneath her skin. Her alien features shimmered and reformed, taking on the appearance of a human woman with pale skin and striking silver hair. She flexed her newly formed fingers, marveling at the sensation. The disguise was perfect, but it was only the first step in a long and dangerous mission. Emerging from the alley, Nerea joined the flow of pedestrians on the busy New York street. She had studied Earth's cultures extensively during her journey, but nothing could have prepared her for the sensory overload of actually being here. The towering skyscrapers, the dizzying array of smells from street vendors, the countless faces rushing past. It was overwhelming and exhilarating all at once. As she walked, Nerea's mind raced with the enormity of her task. She needed to establish a life here, to blend in seamlessly while working towards her true goal. The genetic material she carried within her body was the key to her people's survival. By carefully introducing it into the human population, the Luminae hoped to create a new hybrid species that could thrive on Earth and eventually restore their own civilization. But doubt gnawed at Nerea. The Luminae plan felt like a violation of humanity's trust, a secret alteration of their very essence without their knowledge or consent. Yet what choice did she have? Her entire species teetered on the brink of extinction. Surely the survival of an ancient, advanced civilization justified the means. Lost in her thoughts, Nerea failed to notice the man hurrying in the opposite direction until they collided. She stumbled, her unfamiliarity with her new body causing her to lose balance. Whoa there! Strong hands steadied her, and Nerea found herself looking into a pair of concerned brown eyes. "Are you all right, miss?" The man's touch sent an unexpected jolt through Nerea's system. Her biocamouflage implant worked overtime to suppress her natural bioluminescence, which flared in response to the sudden emotional spike. I'm fine," Nerea managed, her newly formed vocal cords struggling to produce the unfamiliar sounds of English. "Thank you." The man, tall, with dark skin and a kind smile, studied her face. "Are you sure? You look a little lost. First time in the Big Apple?" Nerea nodded, seizing the opportunity. "Yes, I just arrived. Everything is so different here." The man's smile widened. "Well, welcome to New York. I'm Marcus, by the way. Marcus Chen. Listen, there's a great little diner just around the corner if you need a place to catch your breath and maybe get some directions." Nerea hesitated. Her mission required her to integrate, to learn about humans up close. But she hadn't expected to make a connection so soon. Was this an opportunity or a risk? "That would be nice," she said finally. "I'm Nerea." As she followed Marcus down the street, Neria felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. This was her first real interaction with a human, the first test of her cover story and her ability to blend in. Little did Marcus know that this chance encounter would set in motion a chain of events that would alter the course of both their species forever. The diner Marcus led her to was a cozy, retro-styled establishment with checkered floors and red vinyl booths. As they settled into a seat by the window, Neria marveled at the menu, a laminated sheet filled with foods she had only read about in her studies. "So, Neria," Marcus said, after they had placed their orders. He had helpfully suggested a classic hamburger and milkshake for her. "What brings you to New York? Business or pleasure?" Neria recalled her carefully constructed backstory. "A bit of both, actually. I'm a researcher, studying human genetics and evolution. It wasn't entirely a lie." Marcus's eyebrows rose with interest. "No kidding? I'm actually a biologist myself, working on my PhD at Columbia. Small world, huh?" Neria felt a flutter of panic. She hadn't expected to encounter someone in a related field so quickly. She would need to be careful not to reveal the gaps in her knowledge. As their food arrived, Neria watched Marcus carefully, mimicking his movements as he picked up the burger. The explosion of flavors as she took her first bite was almost overwhelming. She had to remind herself not to let her eyes glow with pleasure, a natural luminary reaction to new experiences. Their conversation flowed surprisingly easily. Marcus was eager to discuss his work, and Neria found herself genuinely fascinated by the human perspective on genetics and evolution. She carefully steered the conversation whenever it veered too close to revealing her own limited understanding. As the evening wore on, Neria realized she was enjoying herself. Marcus was kind, intelligent, and passionate about his work. For a moment, she almost forgot about the monumental task that lay ahead of her. But as they prepared to leave the diner, reality came crashing back. Neria had no place to stay, no human currency, and no idea how to proceed with establishing her new life. Marcus seemed to sense her unease. "Listen, Neria, I hope this isn't too forward, but do you have a place to stay tonight? It's just, you mentioned you just arrived, and New York hotels can be pretty expensive." Neria hesitated. Every instinct told her to be cautious, to avoid getting too close to anyone. But she was alone on an alien world, and Marcus was offering her a lifeline. I don't," she admitted. "Everything happened so quickly, I didn't have time to make proper arrangements." Marcus nodded, as if coming to a decision. "Okay, look, my roommate is out of town for a few weeks. Why don't you crash at my place until you get your bearings? I promise I'm not some creep. You can meet some of my colleagues tomorrow if it would make you feel safer." Neria knew she should refuse. Getting this close to a human, especially one in a relevant scientific field, was a risk. But as she looked into Marcus's earnest face, she felt something she hadn't expected, a connection. "Thank you, Marcus," she said softly. "That's very kind of you." As they left the diner and headed towards Marcus' apartment, Neria's mind raced. This unexpected turn of events could either be a golden opportunity or her mission's undoing. Only time would tell which it would be. What Neria didn't realize was that this chance encounter with Marcus Chen would not only change the course of her mission, but would challenge everything she thought she knew about humanity and her own people's plans for Earth. Weeks passed, and Neria found herself settling into a routine on Earth that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Marcus had been true to his word, allowing her to stay in his spare room while she got her bearings. In that time, Neria had thrown herself into learning everything she could about human society, using Marcus and his circle of friends as her unwitting guides. She had secured a position as a research assistant at Columbia University, leveraging her advanced knowledge of genetics to impress the department heads. The irony of working alongside humans to study their own DNA wasn't lost on her. Each day in the lab brought her closer to understanding how to integrate luminary genetic material into the human genome. But as Neria's understanding of humanity grew, so did her doubts about her mission. One evening, as she and Marcus shared takeout Chinese food in their apartment, he broached a subject that made her uncomfortable. "You know, Neria," Marcus said between bites of lo mein, "I've been meaning to ask, where exactly are you from? Your accent is unique." Neria froze, chopsticks halfway to her mouth. She had prepared for this question, but it still sent a jolt of panic through her. "I grew up in a very isolated community," she said carefully. "We didn't have much contact with the outside world. It's why everything here seems so new to me." Marcus nodded, but his eyes held a glimmer of curiosity that made Neria nervous. "Must have been quite a culture shock coming to New York. Do you miss your home?" The question hit Neria like a physical blow. Images of her dying world flashed through her mind. The dimming light of their sun, the withering flora, the desperation in her people's eyes as they sent her on this mission. "Yes," she whispered, surprising herself with the depth of emotion in her voice. "More than I can say." Marcus reached across the table, placing his hand on hers. The touch sent a familiar tingle through Neria's body, her bioluminescence threatening to break through her camouflage. "Hey," he said softly, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring up painful memories. Just know that, well, you've got friends here now. Me, Jasmine, Alex, we're all here for you." Neria felt a lump form in her throat. In the short time she'd been on Earth, Marcus and his friends had shown her more kindness and acceptance than she'd ever expected. It made what she had to do all the more difficult. As the weeks turned to months, Neria's research at the university progressed. She had managed to isolate several key genetic markers that could potentially accept Lumine DNA without rejection. But each breakthrough filled her with a mixture of excitement and dread. One day, as she peered into a microscope at a promising sample, she felt a presence behind her. Turning, she found Dr. Elara Venn, the head of the genetics department, watching her with keen interest. "Fascinating work, Neria," Dr. Venn said, her sharp eyes studying the data on Neria's computer screen. "Your insights into genetic compatibility are, well, I've never seen anything quite like it. It's almost as if you have knowledge of genetic structures we haven't even discovered yet." Neria's heart raced. Had she been too careless, too eager in her research? I've always had a knack for seeing patterns others might miss," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Dr. Venn nodded slowly. "Indeed. Tell me, have you ever considered the implications of your work beyond mere academic interest? The potential applications in, say, treating genetic disorders or even enhancing human capabilities are staggering." For a moment, Neria saw a glimmer of something in Dr. Venn's eyes, a hunger for knowledge, for advancement, that reminded her uncomfortably of the Lumini elders who had sent her on this mission. "I prefer to focus on the pure science," Neria said carefully. "The ethical implications of genetic manipulation are complex." Dr. Venn's lips curved in a slight smile. Of course. But between you and me, I think we're on the verge of something revolutionary here. I'd like you to consider joining a special project I'm overseeing. Something a bit more cutting edge than our usual university research." As Dr. Venn walked away, Neria felt a chill run down her spine. She had come to Earth to secretly alter human genetics, but now she found herself being pulled into human plans that felt uncomfortably familiar. That evening, as Neria walked home from the lab, her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and emotions. The city around her, once so alien and overwhelming, had become almost comfortingly familiar. Street vendors called out their wares, taxis honked impatiently, and the ever-present hum of human activities surrounded her. She'd thought of Marcus, of the friends she'd made, of the life she was building here. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she didn't complete her mission, where she simply lived as a human, contributing to their society, being part of their world. But then she remembered her people, waiting in the void between stars, their hopes pinned on her success. How could she abandon them? As she reached the apartment, Neria made a decision. She needed to accelerate her plans. The longer she waited, the harder it would be to go through with it. Little did she know, events were already in motion that would force her hand and bring her carefully constructed world crashing down around her. As Neria entered the apartment, she found Marcus hunched over his laptop, a look of intense concentration on his face. He glanced up as she closed the door, his expression brightening. "Neria, perfect timing. Come take a look at this," he called, waving her over excitedly. Curious, Neria peered over his shoulder at the screen. What she saw made her blood run cold. The display showed a complex genetic sequence, one that looked eerily similar to the Luminae DNA she had been secretly working with. "I've been analyzing some anomalous genetic samples that have been popping up in our database," Marcus explained, oblivious to Neria's distress. "It's the strangest thing. These gene sequences don't match anything we've ever seen before. It's like they're not human." Neria's mind raced. How had human scientists gotten hold of Luminae genetic material? Had her own research somehow been compromised? "That's fascinating," she managed, trying to keep her voice steady. "Where did these samples come from?" Marcus shrugged. "That's the weird part. They're showing up in routine genetic screenings all over the city. It's like they just appeared out of nowhere." A cold realization dawned on Neria. The Luminae genetic material she carried wasn't just in her body, it was designed to spread, to subtly alter human DNA upon contact. Had she unknowingly already begun changing humanity? "What do you think it means?" she asked, dreading the answer. Marcus's eyes shone with excitement. "I'm not sure, but it could be huge. We might be looking at a new stage of human evolution or, well, it sounds crazy, but what if it's evidence of extraterrestrial life?" Neria felt the room spin. She steadied herself against the desk, her mind whirling with implications. Her mission was proceeding faster than she'd realized, but without her control. And now, humans were on the verge of discovering the truth. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked, noticing her distress. "You look pale." Neria forced a smile. "Just tired. It's been a long day at the lab." Marcus nodded sympathetically. "I can imagine. Hey, listen, a bunch of us are going out tomorrow night to celebrate Alex's birthday. Why don't you come? It might do you good to relax a bit." Neria hesitated. She should be focusing on damage control, on finding a way to conceal the spreading Luminae DNA. But the thought of spending an evening with Marcus and their friends, pretending to be just another human enjoying life, was tempting. "Sure," she found herself saying. "That sounds nice." The next evening, Neria found herself in a crowded bar, surrounded by the pulsing energy of human social interaction. The music was loud, the air thick with conversation and laughter. Despite her worries, Neria found herself relaxing, caught up in the infectious joy of the celebration. As she watched Marcus chatting animatedly with their friends, a pang of emotion struck her. In the months she'd been on Earth, these humans had become more than just subjects of her mission. They were her friends, her colleagues, people she cared about deeply. "Earth to Neria." Jasmine's voice cut through her thoughts. "You're a million miles away. Everything okay?" Neria blinked, focusing on her friend's concerned face. "Sorry, just lost in thought." Jasmine grinned, nudging her playfully. "Thinking about a certain handsome biologist, perhaps." Neria felt her cheeks warm, her camouflage working overtime to hide her natural bioluminescent blush. Her growing feelings for Marcus were a complication she hadn't anticipated. "It's not like that," she protested weakly. Jasmine's grin widened. "Sure it's not. Just remember, life's too short to waste time wondering what if. If you feel something, go for it." As if on cue, Marcus appeared at their side, holding out a hand to Neria. "Hey, want to dance?" For a moment, Neria hesitated. Dancing wasn't something she'd had much practice with in her human form, but the warmth in Marcus's eyes and the encouragement in Jasmine's smile made her decision for her. "I'd love to," she said, taking his hand. As Marcus led her to the dance floor, Neria felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Joy at the simple pleasure of moving to the music with someone she cared about, guilt at the deception she was maintaining. and fear of what would happen when the truth inevitably came to light. For now, though, she pushed those thoughts aside. Tonight, she would allow herself to just be Nerea, a young woman enjoying an evening with friends. Tomorrow, she would face the consequences of her mission. As the night wore on, Nerea found herself laughing more freely than she had in months. The weight of her responsibilities seemed to lift, if only temporarily. But as she and Marcus walked home under the starlit sky, reality began to creep back in. "You know," Marcus said softly, "I'm really glad you came into our lives, Nerea. These past few months have been special." Nerea felt her throat tighten with emotion. "I'm glad too, Marcus. More than you know." They paused outside their apartment building, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings. For a moment, Nerea allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where she was truly human, free to explore these feelings without the burden of her mission. But as Marcus leaned in, his intention clear, Nerea's resolve crumbled. She couldn't do this, couldn't deepen the deception, couldn't risk hurting him more than she already would. "Marcus, she began, stepping back. "I'm sorry, I can't." Confusion and hurt flashed across Marcus's face. "Nerea, what's wrong? Did I misread things?" Nerea felt tears welling in her eyes. "No, you didn't. It's just, there's so much you don't know about me. Things that would change everything if you knew the truth." Marcus's expression softened. "Hey, whatever it is, you can tell me. We're friends, remember? Nothing you say could change that." In that moment, looking into Marcus's earnest face, Nerea made a decision that would alter the course of both their lives forever. "Marcus," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "there's something I need to show you." Nerea's heart pounded as she led Marcus into their apartment. Her mind raced, questioning the wisdom of what she was about to do. But she had come too far, grown too close to these humans, to continue living a lie. "Marcus," she began, her voice trembling, "what I'm about to show you, it's going to change everything. Please try to keep an open mind." Marcus's brow furrowed with concern. "Nerea, you're scaring me. What's going on?" Taking a deep breath, Nerea closed her eyes and focused. Slowly, she deactivated her biocamouflage implant. Her pale human skin shimmered and faded, revealing her true iridescent blue form. Her silver hair receded, exposing her elongated skull and pointed ears. When she opened her eyes, all 6 of them blinked at Marcus. Marcus stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. What are you?" he gasped. "I am Nerea," she said, her voice taking on its natural melodic quality. "But I am not human. I am a Lumine, the last of my kind, sent here on a mission to save my people." For a long moment, Marcus simply stared, his mouth opening and closing wordlessly. Then, to Nerea's surprise, his scientific curiosity seemed to overtake his shock. "The anomalous DNA," he breathed. "It's you. You're changing us." Nerea nodded slowly. "That was my mission. To introduce Lumine genetic material into the human population, creating a hybrid species that could save both our races." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, his mind clearly racing to process this revelation. But why? Why come to Earth? Why pretend to be one of us? Nerea's luminescence dimmed, reflecting her sadness. "Our world is dying. We needed a new home, a way to survive. We chose Earth because your species is remarkably adaptable. We hoped that by merging our DNA with yours, we could create a new race capable of thriving here and eventually restoring our civilization. And you never thought to just ask?" Marcus's voice held a mix of hurt and anger. "To approach us openly." "We feared your reaction," Nerea admitted. "Your history shows how often you've reacted with violence to the unknown. We thought this way would be safer." Marcus paced the room, his emotions visibly warring on his face. "I can't believe this. All this time. Was any of it real? Our friendship, the work we've done together." Nerea stepped forward, her hands outstretched pleadingly. "All of it was real, Marcus. My feelings, my care for you and the others, that wasn't part of the mission. It's why I'm telling you the truth now. I can't bear to keep lying to you." Marcus stopped, looking at her with a mixture of wonder and wariness. "Why me? Why tell me this now?" "Because I trust you," Nerea said softly. "Because in getting to know you, to know humanity, I've come to question everything about my mission. And because I care for you, Marcus, more than I should." The tension in the room was palpable as Marcus absorbed her words. Finally, he spoke, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "I need time to process this, Nerea. It's too much." Nerea nodded, her heart heavy. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready to talk." As Marcus retreated to his room, Nerea sank onto the couch, her true form glowing dimly in the darkness. She had taken an enormous risk in revealing herself, potentially jeopardizing her entire mission. But as she sat there, contemplating the magnitude of what had just happened, she felt a strange sense of relief. The truth was out, at least to one human. Now, she would have to face the consequences of her actions and decisions that would shape the future of both their species. Little did Nerea know, her revelation to Marcus was just the beginning. As dawn broke over New York City, events were already in motion that would bring her hidden presence on Earth to light in ways she could never have anticipated. Across the city, in a secure government facility, Dr. Elara Venn stared at a computer screen, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and triumph. The anomalous genetic samples she had been studying had just been matched to a face, Nerea's face. "Gotcha," Dr. Venn whispered, a predatory smile spreading across her face. "Let's see what secrets you're really hiding, my alien friend." As the sun rose, casting long shadows across the awakening city, the stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of two civilizations. Nerea's mission, her friendship with Marcus, and the future of both humans and Lumine hung in the balance. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The following days were a blur of tension and uncertainty for Nerea. Marcus had become distant, spending long hours at the lab and barely speaking to her when their paths crossed at home. She could see the conflict in his eyes, the scientist in him fascinated by the implications of her existence, warring with a friend who felt betrayed by her deception. Nerea threw herself into her work, desperately trying to find a way to control the spread of Lumine DNA before it became too widespread to contain. But her efforts were hampered by a growing sense of unease. She felt eyes on her wherever she went, a prickling sensation at the back of her neck that set her on edge. Her suspicions were confirmed one afternoon as she left the university lab. A black SUV pulled up beside her, and two men in dark suits stepped out. "Miss Nerea Thorne," one of them said, though his tone made it clear it wasn't really a question. "We need you to come with us." Nerea's mind raced. Had Marcus betrayed her? No, she couldn't believe that. Something else was at play here. "May I ask why?" she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The man's expression remained impassive. "National security matter. Please, don't make this difficult." For a moment, Nerea considered running or revealing her true form to escape, but she knew that would only confirm their suspicions and potentially endanger Marcus and her other human friends. With a resigned nod, she allowed herself to be led into the vehicle. The drive was long and silent. Nerea's captors offered no explanation, and she didn't ask for one. Finally, they arrived at a nondescript building on the outskirts of the city. As Nerea was led inside, she realized with a sinking feeling that this must be a secret government facility. In a stark interrogation room, Nerea found herself face to face with Dr. Elara Venn. The woman's sharp eyes gleamed with a mixture of scientific curiosity and something darker, ambition, perhaps, or a thirst for power. Well, Dr. Venn said, a small smile playing on her lips. "The mysterious Nerea Thorne, or shall I say, the last of the Lumine. You've led us on quite a chase." Nerea's blood ran cold. "How?" "Oh, we've known something was amiss for a while now. Dr. Venn explained, pacing the room. The anomalous DNA samples, your unprecedented insights into genetics, it all added up to something extraordinary. And now here you are. What do you want from me? Neria asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. Dr. Venn's smile widened. Why, everything, my dear. Your knowledge, your technology, your very DNA. Do you realize what you represent? The key to human evolution, to curing every disease, to extending our lifespans indefinitely. With your help, willing or not, we can reshape the very future of humanity. Neria felt a chill run down her spine. This was exactly the scenario the Lumine elders had feared, humans seeking to exploit their advanced biology for their own gain. And if I refuse, she asked. Dr. Venn's expression hardened. Then we'll simply have to acquire what we need by other means. You're not the only source of Lumine DNA on Earth now, are you? The threat was clear. If Neria didn't cooperate, they would track down the humans who had been affected by her genetic material, including Marcus and their friends. Before Neria could respond, the door burst open. To her shock, Marcus rushed in, followed by a group of official-looking men and women. "Stop," Marcus shouted. "You can't do this." Dr. Venn whirled around, her face contorted with anger. "Chen, how dare you interfere with a classified operation?" One of the men with Marcus stepped forward, flashing a badge. "Dr. Venn, you're relieved of duty. This operation was not authorized by the proper channels." As Dr. Venn was led away, protesting loudly, Marcus rushed to Neria's side. "Are you okay?" he asked, his eyes filled with concern. "I'm so sorry, Neria. When I realized what was happening, I had to do something." Neria felt tears welling in her eyes. You helped me, even after everything I told you." Marcus took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I was hurt and confused, yes, but you're my friend, Neria. More than that, you trusted me with the truth. I couldn't let them hurt you." The man who had confronted Dr. Venn approached them. "Miss Thorne, or whatever your real name is, we have a lot to discuss. Your presence on Earth, your intentions. It's a matter of global security now." Neria nodded, feeling a strange mix of fear and relief. "I understand, and I'm ready to tell you everything. But first," she looked at Marcus, then back at the official. "First, I think it's time humanity learned the full truth about the Lumine, and about the changes already happening to your people. No more secrets." The days that followed Neria's revelation were a whirlwind of activity. News of an alien presence on Earth spread like wildfire, causing a mixture of fear, excitement, and confusion across the globe. Neria found herself at the center of a media storm, her face plastered across every screen and newspaper. In a historic address to the United Nations, Neria stood before the world's leaders, her true Lumine form on full display. She spoke of her people's plight, their desperate plan for survival, and the unintended consequences of her mission on Earth. "I came here with the intention of saving my species," she said, her melodic voice resonating through the chamber. "But in doing so, I realize I risked changing yours without your consent. For that, I am deeply sorry." The reaction was mixed. Some nations called for immediate action to reverse the genetic changes, while others saw potential in the merging of human and Lumine DNA. Debates raged about ethics, sovereignty, and the future of human evolution. Through it all, Marcus stood by Neria's side, acting as a bridge between her and the scientific community. His understanding of both human and Lumine genetics proved invaluable in explaining the situation to a wary public. "The changes are subtle but profound," Marcus explained in countless interviews and press conferences. "The Lumine DNA enhances human resilience, longevity, and cognitive abilities. But it doesn't fundamentally alter who we are as a species. It's more like unlocking potential that was always there." As weeks turned into months, the initial panic began to subside. Rigorous studies confirmed that the genetic changes posed no immediate threat to human health. In fact, Early data suggested improvements in disease resistance and cellular regeneration among those carrying Lumine genes. Nerea worked tirelessly with human scientists, sharing her knowledge and helping to develop technologies that could harness the benefits of Lumine DNA while allowing for individual choice in genetic modification. One evening, as Nerea and Marcus stood on the balcony of their apartment, looking out over the city, she felt a sense of cautious optimism. "Do you think they'll ever fully accept us?" she asked softly. Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "It won't be easy," he admitted. "Change never is, but I think we're on the right path. Humans are adaptable, remember? It's one of the things you admired about us." Nerea nodded, leaning into his embrace. Their relationship had evolved, growing stronger through the challenges they faced together. It was a living example of the potential for human and Lumine cooperation. As if to underscore this point, a news alert flashed on their phones. The first human Lumine child had been born, a symbol of hope for both species. "You know," Marcus said, a smile in his voice, "when you first told me you were an alien, I never imagined we'd end up here." Nerea laughed, her bioluminescence pulsing with joy. "Neither did I, but I'm glad we did." In the years that followed, Earth underwent a transformation. The integration of Lumine knowledge and technology accelerated human advancement in medicine, space exploration, and environmental restoration. The genetic changes spread gradually, always with transparency and consent at the forefront. Nerea's people, preserved in stasis aboard vast ships, were slowly awakened and welcomed to Earth. There were challenges, of course, cultural misunderstandings, lingering fears, and the occasional conflict. But for every setback, there were countless examples of cooperation and mutual growth. One decade after Nerea's arrival on Earth, she stood with Marcus atop a new building, the Lumine Human Cooperative Research Center. Scientists from both species worked side by side, exploring the frontiers of genetics, physics, and interstellar travel. "We did it," Nerea said, marveling at how far they'd come. "We found a way for both our peoples to survive, to thrive." Marcus squeezed her hand. "We did more than that. We created something new, something better than either of us could have imagined alone." As they watched the sun set over the bustling city, Nerea reflected on her journey. She had come to Earth as the last hope of a dying race, carrying the weight of her people's survival. Now she stood as a bridge between two civilizations, a symbol of what could be achieved through understanding, adaptation, and love. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities. Human and Lumine, two species once separated by the vast gulf of space, now united in a shared destiny among the stars.